This first question is for you, Assemblyman. Our state legislature has very low approval ratings with voters. What do you believe are the reasons for widespread voter dissatisfaction? What actions would you propose to address the reasons for low voter approval and restore faith in the state government?
Sure, thank you. Before I get to that, though, I do want to address Mr. Wiesner's statement. I actually do not disagree with his analysis. I might quibble with the numbers a little bit, but he's not wrong about what has happened with the state budget deficit increasing, and I'll tell you the reasons for that. Number one, when Governor Schwarzenegger first came into office, the first thing he did was drastically reduce the vehicle license fee. Now that money went to local governments, to cities and counties, primarily cities. And so in order to keep them from going insolvent, he committed the state to backfilling that money. $6 billion every year and growing. The second thing he did was put on the ballot a debt bond for $15 billion. So that was at least half of the increase of the debt that Mr. Wiesner is talking about. Didn't happen in a vacuum. It was approved by the voters. And in fact, I've been dedicated to getting this information out to the public as much as I can. I have a budget blog that you can find on my website. I do a monthly e-newsletter that is all about the budget and the latest things that have happened. I also have a YouTube video that's called Budget Myths that explains to you how we got in detail, how we got into the situation that we're in. Because my belief, people cannot make good decisions unless they have good information. Now, with respect to the issue that you asked about, this is an ongoing frustration for myself as well as a lot of other people. First of all, people love their own legislators. Obviously, they elected them. And they love to hate the other guy, and they love to hate the institution. But the bigger problem is that the legislature is dysfunctional, and it's been created to be dysfunctional. We struggle with a budget vote, which should be a very simple thing every single year, because it requires a 2/3 vote. You can't get a 2/3 vote realistically. What it does is it allows a small handful, up to 6 people out of 120 in the state legislature, to hold the budget hostage, and they do that every single year. Every single year we pay a price for that. To get those 6 votes, we have to give pork out. We have to put something on the ballot. There's always a price, and the legislature struggles with it, and there's no doubt about it. The best thing we can do is adopt Prop 25, which will return majority rule to the state legislature to simply adopt a budget. That's what we need to do. And I could go on, but like I said, I'm dedicated to trying to educate people and reach out to people and help people get the information that they need, and I think that would go a long way.
Thank you.
Yes, I think the contempt that the normal people, the common people have for their legislature is well deserved by the legislature. They have not done the job. I don't care what you say. If you take 100 days past the beginning of the fiscal year to pass a budget, what happens in that 100 days? In that 100 days, you have a state budget that's totally out of control because there's no controlling document in there to say what to spend and how much to spend. So I akin it to autopilot. We're out there, we're in the air, we're on autopilot, and Mount McKinley stands right before us. And what is the cost of that 100 days? My understanding through my caucus in Sacramento is that it costs us over $3 billion in additional deficits. That's totally contemptible in my estimation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wiesner, if the City of Vallejo were given the opportunity to expand the presence of the California Maritime Academy campus into the downtown Vallejo, what, if anything, can you at the state level do to help the city make this a reality? And furthermore, can you help with funding the necessary feasibility and marketing studies through grants or other means at the state level?
Well, one of the biggest problems we have with education funding in California, we have a mandate, Proposition 98 dictates that we have to have a certain amount of the budget, going to dedicated to education. But one thing that we don't realize is that how much of that education budget is eaten, consumed, and wasted in Sacramento. What I would say, I would like to pass additional legislation saying of that Prop 98 money that goes to education, 70% of it should come down to the local level. And I believe that 30% administrative costs on the total budget of the state of California is quite sufficient. And if you look at the numbers now, the numbers are far in excess of 30%. And that alone will give Vallejo a great deal of benefit, and you could do a lot more than you are doing now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, interesting numbers. Nearly 100% of Prop 98 goes to the local level. The state funding, I mean, I don't really know where those numbers came from. But the fact is, Prop 98 doesn't fund Cal Maritime. Cal Maritime is a part of our CSU system, and Prop 98 goes to K through 12, plus a little bit of funding to community colleges. So it's interesting, but not really relevant to the question. The question really is, how can the state help the city and the university to expand? And I think the idea of having part of the campus in downtown Vallejo is an excellent one. I'm always in favor of increasing activity downtown, and Vallejo has a marvelous downtown, which could easily accommodate this kind of a use and would help bring, I believe, more businesses to the downtown because of its location there. And it would be a matter of my office, if I am so lucky to be elected senator, working with the folks at City Hall, working with the mayor and the Chamber of Commerce as well, and the people at the Cal Maritime to locate part of the campus there, try to streamline whatever process we have to get through. And I'm always an advocate of when you want something, you got to make it happen. And so we would be looking for state grant funding. If there is any kind of funding to help make that happen, we would also be looking at making sure that money is going through CSUs and getting to Cal Maritime, which is something that I've been working on, by the way, for the last 6 years. I've worked very closely with Cal Maritime in their activities. Sorry, I'm out of time. No. Oh, I've got more, 30 seconds, sorry. Anyway, that's something that I think is very hopeful and very helpful, and something that I would really look forward to working on.
Thank you. This question's for you, similar. Our K-12 public educational system is under constant negative criticism. Do you believe the critics are right? What would you propose to address the unequal funding among school districts and high dropout rates, particularly in poor districts? Are there any particular reforms that you have supported or would support in the future to improve the performance of public school students?
Wow, and all that in what, 2 minutes? 3 minutes, okay. Well, there's no doubt at all that California schools have deteriorated over the years. And in large part, that's because the state has stopped investing. When I was a kid, and I was born in San Diego, by the way, at the Naval Hospital. My father had been stationed out here at Mare Island. He was sergeant of the guard as a young Marine, and my parents actually met here in Vallejo. We moved to the East Bay when I was 2, so I spent my entire education in public schools. And I went to CSU Sacramento, got my degree there. We used to have school districts that were so good, people would move to the state of California because they wanted their kids to go through California public schools. And people would come here to go to UC or CSU, and then they would stay because California is such a wonderful place to live and do business. We no longer have that, because for the last 25 to 30 years, we have stopped investing in public education. And you asked about the dropout rate. Among Latino males, I think the dropout rate is well over 50%. That is simply staggering, and it is unacceptable. We are shortchanging an entire generation of kids. We are not educating a workforce. We are not keeping up with technology. We are not keeping up with our infrastructure needs. We are simply not providing the infrastructure that we need to bring business here and to make business successful, or to create the jobs, the well-paying, sustainable jobs that we need. So we have got to start reinvesting in education. That's number one. That's fundamental. We can't do it without that. We, California, are now 48th out of 50 states in terms of per pupil spending. That is unacceptable. And after the latest budget cuts, I believe we may be even lower than that. We rank down there with Mississippi. And this is the 8th largest economy in the world. It is simply not acceptable. We have got to change that. That's the first thing. We cannot improve our schools unless we start funding them. And part of the inequity in funding comes because in higher income places, parents and others can contribute to the schools. In low income places, parents and businesses and supporters can't. So we end up with this unequal funding and all of these, enrichment programs that really should be part of our educational system in the higher income areas, and we're neglecting the lower income areas. And I think that's a shame, and California needs to stop that and reverse the course. That's one of the things I fought so hard for last year. I wanted to make sure we did not undo the things that are great for California, so that we leave the fundamentals in place, so that when our economy comes back, we don't have to recreate the wheel. We can simply start refunding and reinvesting.
The concept here that if you direct more of the money down to the local areas, that you would be somehow not impacting the communities is beyond my comprehension. Now, you can't tell me, you look in Sacramento, and the biggest and the most bloated area of state expenditures is the education department up there. And there's no doubt whatsoever that it is a over-bloated bureaucracy up there now. We need that money to come down to the local level. I don't care whether you call it 98 money or something that's other than 98 money, but that's all education money. And the money needs to be directed, and it needs to be brought down to the local people where they can control their education needs. And that's one of the things that we really need to do in California, is that we need to decentralize this terribly bloated and debt-consuming bureaucracy in Sacramento, and get it down to the people here in the local communities where they really can use it and effectively educate their children. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wiesner, this question is for you.